Welcome to the Black Belt Business Podcast. My name is Matthew Brenner, and a lot of you are going to know my guest today. I am with Mike Metzger. He was highly recommended from a lot of listeners. Like, hey, you got to have him on. And the funny part that I talked to Mike about before the episode was that I actually asked him to come on over a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago. I'm not even sure. And he's like, yeah, sure. And I just never sent the link to set it up, which is super embarrassing. So I went back and looked at it. I was like, oh my God, I dropped the ball here. So Mike, thank you so much for coming on here today. I'm really excited to have you. Give people a little bit of background. I think a lot of people know who you are, but for those who don't, give us a little bit of background.
Well, first, thank you for having me on. So I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Mike Metzger, just before I started martial arts in 1984, I own, with my business partner, Frank Silverman, we own 9 schools in Orlando, Florida. We have 151 licensed locations around the nation and Canada. We also run the Martial Arts Industry Association, which is consulting for martial arts schools all over the world. And we also have a real estate company as well, commercial real estate. And happy to be here. And I appreciate, again, you having me on.
So I want to hear a little bit about the real estate investing. So what I want to know is, when you think of yourself, like your identity, do you think of yourself as a martial artist, a entrepreneur, a real estate investor? Like honestly, like what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of yourself and your identity?
Well, an entrepreneur, but it's a great question, because I think, if your audience is mostly martial arts school owners, the fact that we have an owner title, or we have a school, we automatically think we're entrepreneurs. But for a long time, I was not. I was a martial arts school owner. I was not an entrepreneur. And then as we grew from when, Frank Silverman had some schools and I had some schools, we were actually competitors. We were not partners. And I went from 1 school to 2 schools to 3 schools. And, he was doing the same thing simultaneously. The Martial Arts Industry Association with Century Martial Arts kind of brought us together when we started doing MAIA together. And then we did a real estate deal together, a commercial real estate deal. And then in 2006, was our first, we developed our first real estate together. And then in 2008, we officially brought all the schools together and we're 50-50 partners in everything. And as we were doing that, we would ask each other, what are we? When somebody says, well, what do you do for a living? Do you say you own a chain of martial arts schools? Or do you say you have a real estate company? And for a while, we really didn't know our identity truly. I think I'm a martial artist first and foremost. But as we grew and as the real estate grew, about 7 years ago, 8 years ago, it's hard to tell with COVID, right? But 7 years ago, maybe, the real estate started getting so big and the martial arts and the licensing started getting so big. I said, why don't you focus on the real estate side. I'll focus on the martial arts side and the consulting side and the licensing side. So today, I think if you were to ask Frank Silverman, what does he do? It's without a doubt a real estate first and also a chain of martial arts schools and licensed schools around the country. I'd probably say, we have a chain of martial arts schools and a real estate company as well. So it'd probably be, one would be first for him and one would be first for me. But an entrepreneur, at the end of the day, we do a lot of different business. And so I think today we're entrepreneurs, but it took a long time for me to accept the fact that I was not a business person just because I owned a martial arts school or 2 or 3. I was not really savvy in business. I think I was just very good at what I did, which was teach martial arts, had a good enough personality to get customers and keep them and do well. But we've been in business now since 1991 in the martial arts. So that's evolved. And I just turned 50 in September. So I'm not a kid anymore. I opened my school when I was 18 years old. So at 18, I didn't know what I was doing. But anyway, so I would consider myself an entrepreneur.
What do you actually enjoy the most? Like if you had to pick one and you're like, maybe they all are, let's say, profitable or they're all great, cool. But if you had to pick one to stick to, what do you think you would do?
Well, as I said, I'm a martial artist. I mean, people in the industry see me as just a business consultant. They're not here, but I still train 3 to 4. I train 5 days a week. But if I'm either in the gym or I'm on the mats training in the morning, and I'm typically on the mats 3 days a week, training in the morning and in the gym the other 2 days. And I can't. I mean, martial arts has given me everything that I have today. But if I had to pick one, there's a saying: martial arts makes you rich, real estate makes you wealthy. So you're asking me, do I just want to be rich or do I want to be wealthy? What I like is to have my cake and eat it too. And whoever came up with the saying that you can't have your cake and eat it too, I think wasn't as successful as they could have been. So when I consult people, it's okay to have both. If I couldn't pick one, but I couldn't live. If you said to me right now, you just can't train anymore if you're going to continue with your life, I could not do that. I have to train because if I don't, I'm not out there wanting to compete or be the toughest guy in the world anymore. But for health reasons and for passion, I need training. I need to train.
So you said you have over 100 schools that are licensed, right? So what's the name of that licensed school?
Championship Martial Arts.
Okay, cool. So why go the license route? Why not like franchise? Like how did you go from your 9 schools to, hey, I'm going to start licensing out these systems for Championship Martial Arts?
So the story is when Mr. Frank Silverman was married to his first wife and she worked for us and they got divorced and she still worked for us. It was friendly, just whatever. It didn't work out in the personal life. She still worked for us, but then eventually she moved. When she moved out of state, she had said, hey, because I know all the systems and I want the curriculum and access to everything, can I open up a Championship Martial Arts in North Carolina? We're like, I guess we can license that. We could do that. And that was that. And then what happened is with the people that I've consulted in the Martial Arts Industry Association, they called and said, hey, did you open a school in North Carolina? I said, oh, no, that's a licensed school. That's Mr. Silverman's ex-wife. She has a licensed school. And then my clients would say, well, why didn't you tell me that you licensed? Can we license? And I said, well, I guess, why would you want to? Well, I don't know if you know who John Hackelman is, the pit master. Do you know John Hackelman? He was Chuck Liddell's coach and trainer.
Okay.
Glover Teixeira, who's UFC champion. He's legendary coach. Anyway, we're very, very close. And Mike Dillard Sr., who was the CEO of Century Martial Arts, and now it's his son, Mike Dillard. But Mike Dillard Sr. said to me, man, John Hackelman really loves you. And I said to Mike Dillard, when you help people make a lot of money and be successful, they tend to love you, right? It was kind of a funny response. But going back to the license thing, when I said, well, why would you want to do that? Well, because everything you've helped us with, we just want to do everything you're doing. Can we do it? So our first official licensee was in New Jersey. And once that happened, other clients started seeing that and asking. So if you've been in the martial arts business a long time, I take it, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
My whole life, basically.
Do you ever remember seeing an ad to become a licensed Championship Martial Arts school? You probably didn't.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We didn't run ads, right? And so people that we were working with started wanting to just do what we do. Now, why the franchise or why not the franchise? Because I didn't want people to lose their identity. In martial arts, there's culture, there's tradition. So we have MMA, the Pit, for example, the Pit, John Hackelman, the Pit, which is MMA, and he's a CMA licensed school. We have MMA schools, we have Kung Fu schools, we have karate schools, it doesn't matter, right? Because as a license, people can just come and come. I always say it's like coming to the buffet table. You choose what you want that's going to help you. You want all the employee handbooks. You want turnkey systems. You want trainings to onboard people, how to hire them, how to train them, how to onboard staff, program directors. whatever you want. Or if you want the whole buffet, you have that choice. If it's a franchise, in our business, in our industry, and some people would disagree because I know people that have done it, but basically, whatever your culture or tradition is and your style, it's okay, this is the color you have to use. This is what you got to do. This is what you got to follow. There's nothing wrong with that. But just for me personally is why I went with the licensing room. Believe me, we have 151 locations. So a lot of times it's been brought up many times. Do you want to flip a switch to a franchise? Now, in franchising, I think it's more lucrative. It's more profitable. It's more sellable. That's not my goal here. And I think that's another reason why, what I want to do is the best way I know how. Is my priority is to help this industry that has given me everything that I have today. And as I said, I'm a martial artist first. And if you've been in the industry a long time, a lot of times this is feast or famine, right? Martial arts school owners, they're either really doing well, they're really comfortable, or they're really struggling. And the truth is the majority of our industry is struggling. And so I believe in what we do, and whatever I can do to try to help the industry not struggle, I will do that. And so that's kind of the background on how we got to where we're at in the licensing versus franchise route, which again, I'm not against franchising at all. I think franchising is even easier. It's more turnkey for people. It could be easier, but I didn't want people to have to lose their identity or their culture or whatever style they came up with.
So what are they licensing from you? The name and the business systems?
Some people use our name. Some people do not use our name. Like, for example, there's a school in Chicago, Dominion MMA. Dominion MMA is a CMA affiliate, the Pit, John Hackelman. He's not using Championship Martial Arts, but they get access to our entire curriculum, all our business systems, our trainings. We do live program director meetings. We do Zoom meetings every month. We do owners only calls every month. There's just a plethora of business, because at the end of the day, business is business, regardless of your style. And some people are in it for the support and just to be part of something bigger and to have all of that. And some people just come in and say, I just want whatever you're offering. So they can.
So now is that something that you promote, or just when people come up to you and ask you about it? Or
I still haven't promoted it. It's not out there. You're not going to see. I mean, as of right now and ever, you don't see Facebook ads. You don't see ads about CMA anymore. Yeah. So no, we don't actively promote that.
In a license, tell me if this is correct. I could be wrong. I think usually a franchise fee is like a percentage of revenue, and a license is usually a flat fee. Is that kind of how you do it too, or
flat fee? Right, flat fee. No matter how much you grow or whatever, we don't take percentages of enrollments, bell tests, or anything like that. It's just a flat fee.
All right, so I want to hear about the commercial real estate. So obviously you had like your own schools, your 9 schools. So now you co-own those with Frank, right?
Right.
So do you still plan on opening up more of those locations, or you prefer just to keep on licensing or grow the Martial Arts Industry Association side? Like, where do you want to go from here?
Yeah, it's all of the above. So no, we're actively still expanding and opening. So we opened one just 3 months ago. We opened one last year. And we plan on opening more. And, my goal would be to get to, to open at least 3 a year and then to 5 a year. And I'm doing that for my team. I have people that have been with me for 25 plus years. One person's been with me 30 years, and they're executives in the CMA Championship Martial Arts Orlando. And they have grown to very lucrative real careers. And now I have people that are moving up that have been with me for 17 years, 15 years, 18 years. And, they've been in a school. And so we have a corporate structure where you can move from, an assistant instructor to a senior instructor to a chief instructor to an assistant manager in the school to a manager to a GM now, which is an executive level position, to a director of operation. We have a vice president of business operations. And so I just had a meeting yesterday, as a matter of fact, as we're promoting people up, we're in that time where we need to start expanding more to give everybody these opportunities, because we do very well keeping our people. I think like to think we take good care of our people. So no, we want to expand that as well as all of the above, because I also have people that started with us in our schools that we moved over onto the licensing side and their pathway for growth. My mission and passion now is to take care of my people and take care of the industry. The industry's already taken care of myself and Frank Silverman, and now what drives me is to take care of my people, and that's something that will never go away. Right? You'll never arrive at taking care of others.
Yeah, I like that you brought up that all the different levels your employees can kind of get to. I recently sent out a post on Facebook and in my newsletter. One of the themes I do every Friday is about team building. Okay, so each day I send out a newsletter 3 days a week. If you're listening to this, send me an email or message, newsletter, and I'll send you the link to subscribe. But it's 3 days a week. Each email is a 3-minute read or less. So I actually put it through ChatGPT and say, make sure this is 3 minutes to read or less. Sometimes I write too long and I have to cut it. And each day it's a different theme. So Monday's marketing, Wednesday's retention, Friday is team building. And so recently on Friday, we talked about one of the things I sent out, super popular post for me, was you need to have a roadmap for your employees to how to go from student to maybe volunteer to assistant instructor to head instructor to manager to location owner to developer, whatever that looks like for you. You need to have something to set a vision for them. Otherwise, they just train with you and they just go get another job eventually because they don't even know it's possible that they can have a career in martial arts because you never even showed it to them. And I use an example like Chipotle. Like I went, and the way I figured this out is I just went to go buy a burrito at lunchtime, and they had a flyer in front of the cashier register of like a careers within Chipotle, and they had the roadmap right there, literally for like any customer could have seen it. Like they weren't hiding it, right? And I was like, why don't we have this, right? So that's what this is a while ago. But that's why I posted about it. I even posted their roadmap because it's publicly available. Their career vision roadmap for people, and like everyone needs to have the same thing for their school. Maybe they don't want to have 5 schools, but they should still have a roadmap of like what it looks like to grow within their location. You have a roadmap for belt system. Why not have one for instructors?
100%. And we have one that's called Pathway to Success. And I think it's great that I'm assuming this is what you've taken that and have implemented that with Action Karate, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the thing this industry misses too, right? Is if you're lucky enough and you learn how to grow your business enough to hire staff, there's a difference between hiring someone for a job or a career. There's a difference. And the second thing is it's all temporary. If you have no ladder, it's temporary. And you got to have, if you want to keep people in a career to retirement age or whatever that is, right? You have to have a ladder to move up, because I don't think anybody, I would just say, because I do have one person in our company, maybe a couple people, but the majority of people do not want to be glued to a seat or a mat till 9:30 every single night for the rest of their life and never have a dinner with their family necessarily, right? And so that's typically temporary. So if you have a good person and they're like, sir, I have my second child and I just can't do this till 9:30, what do we do then? Right? And that is the reason why we should want to scale. And I think there's a lot of people in the martial arts that say, no, you lose quality. And no, I'm fine with this. I don't want the headaches of multiple schools. Well, then that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. But you'll just be on a wheel that you're going to just recycle every so often. It's just going to recycle. You're just going to have to keep building up a team eventually. So I think it's great that you have a success path of sorts. And I think everybody should have that. And there you go, as far as asking that first question. Are you an entrepreneur or you're a martial arts school owner? I think most of us are martial arts school owners. If you're a true entrepreneur, you're taking the risks and you want to scale your company. I mean, if you're in a business, don't you want to grow that business, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And if you're making some money and let's say you pay your expenses and you max out your retirement account and you kind of put away what you need, then like you need to be taking that extra money and investing it in some sort of real estate or stocks or whatever you want to do that's like a safe investment for you or matches your risk portfolio to make that money grow. Because like you said, yeah, martial arts, you can make money and maybe be rich, but if you want to be wealthy, you have to invest that money somewhere else. I actually had a guest on, like I had a real estate investor on slash agent in an earlier episode talking about, hey, here's how you can actually find a property and invest, and here's how to do it, and kind of walked us through the process. But I'm curious to hear your process. So most of the commercial buildings you invest in, is that where your schools go, or do you put other businesses in there, or do you get shopping centers where you put multiple? What do you typically look for?
So the first building I ever developed was in '06, and I did put my school in there. It was a 12,000 square foot strip mall, and I put my school in 3,500 or 3,000. I think it's 3,000 square feet at the time, and the rest we leased up. And that's how we started. We started with little strip malls, out of the 9 locations today, we own 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 of the 9 that we own, or 4. And we've evolved on the real estate side. So we got out of the mom and pops and the strip malls, which was very good, right? I mean, it was good. So now today we just do freestanding buildings, for the most part, freestanding buildings with national tenants and regional tenants today. So we're doing Taco Bell's, Checkers, McDonald's, so it has nothing to do with the martial arts business or schools. It's, as I said, about 7-8 years ago, it started getting really, really big and busy. And so we had to really stay focused. And that's when we decided to consciously just, I'll focus on this, you focus on that. However, if you're hearing anything in the background, Mr. Silverman's office is right through the door in front of me. And when there's things happening, he'll say, hey, we got this opportunity. And if we're good, and I trust him, and that's about the trust. That's, our partnership's pretty unique too. So I know what he's working on and doing, and then I move on and get back to my deal. Or if I say, hey, we're opening up another school over in this area, great. It's like, great, okay. And we go and we move, and that's kind of how it's evolved now. So the real estate, I would suggest we have an advantage as any business owner, because you should start by owning a commercial property and being your own tenant, so to speak, because it takes a lot of the risk out of the deal, as opposed to if you just wanted to go buy a building and hope to get a tenant or keep a tenant, or maybe there's a tenant already in place, the return's not as strong, but it's a little safer. But I think we have an advantage. So if you start there, then it can evolve, and it depends if that's what you want to do. And not everybody wants to do that, right? Like you said, I believe everybody should invest for their future.
So how do you typically attract tenants like a Taco Bell or a Checkers? Do you know a rep there, and do you know that they're gonna most likely rent those locations that you purchased and developed before, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so it's very relationship driven. So we don't buy a building unless we already know we have a lease in hand. So
okay,
we don't take a lot of risk today, like in the olden days when we developed a strip mall, and then we got to fill it up with tenants. Yes, it's all relationship driven. We have the brokers that will come to us and say, hey, do you have anything in this area? We have a team that'll look in the area. We'll say, what do you think of these? They'll look at the site. We'll get it under contract. They'll say, we want it. We'll buy it, and we'll put them in, and we'll flip it or we'll keep it. I mean, it just depends on the tenant, whether we sell it or we're going to hold it.
Why not hold it? Is this sometimes you just sell it for a lot more than you bought it, and I might as
There's
well exit now?
It just depends on the tenant and the deal and the market. I mean, sometimes there's, we've done too. We've developed a relationship years ago with dispensaries, medical marijuana dispensaries. I don't drink. I don't do medical marijuana, right? But on the medical marijuana side, we developed a relationship when they were coming into Florida, and they wanted us to develop all their sites, and they wanted to rent from us. They wanted to lease from us, right? So it got to the point where, we had 30 of these, and that's heavy into that. We didn't want to have 30 of those and have our portfolio really weighted with 30 of those. So we sold those, built up more, sold the portfolio, so like those we'll do. And then also it depends on market trends. I mean, I don't know if this is exciting for the audience because it may be interesting for everybody, but market trends. Sometimes the market is just like we get offers. Sometimes you just can't pass up. I mean, you get people that are doing what's called a 1031 exchange. Are you familiar with a 1031 exchange?
Yeah, you sell what you have, use that money to buy something
You
else.
got to use that money to defer the tax, and sometimes
Yeah.
you have a certain period of time where you got to put your money in. And so sometimes people with 1031s, they overpay, because if not, they're going to pay a big tax, right?
Yeah, they're in a
And so,
rush. It's usually 30 days, right? Or is it 90
well,
days?
there's 90 days to identify, and I think it's and Silverman, because he's on this, knows it, but I think it's 90 days. You got to identify the properties. I think you have 6 months to close on the property.
Mm.
So, but if you're running out of time and you got to just park that money, sometimes it's okay to overpay, because overpaying for a property is less expensive than paying the tax that you're going to lose. So sometimes it's just the right time to sell. It's like, okay, it wasn't necessarily on the market, but with the brokers in the small world, it's like, hey, we have an offer. We'd like to, know if you'd want to sell it. And sometimes you flip that. Now, some of these big national, like we have holdings in New York. I think we're selling a Pennsylvania today, as a matter of fact, is what they told me when I came in. We're selling a building we have in Pennsylvania. But like a building that we own in New York, we developed that building. It's got to be 10 plus years ago. It's a bank, and that's a hold. Like it's a triple net plus lease. We have no responsibilities, the roof, nothing, right? And it's a very, very exclusive piece of property. And that's just, you collect the check in the mail, and it's going to be paid off, and they're going to renew. And if they didn't renew, it'd be leased up like that, because it's a very exclusive piece of property and great piece of property there. So that we're just holding, because that's just a legacy deal there, right? If
Yeah,
you do
I feel
some
like
land leases, if you're familiar with land leases,
Mm.
those are holds a lot of times too. It's like you lease the land, it's 20 years, and you have a national tenant on there, and you walk away, and no need to really sell that. But again, it just depends.
In your experience, what's been like the worst type of tenant? Like, is there a certain type of
Well,
business? Like, you did dispensaries, which I feel like kind of go in and out. It's like a new thing. People
no,
are very excited. I thought that.
we never had any of those go in and out. They've always been on time all the time.
Oh, good.
They're $100 million dispensaries, and some publicly traded dispensaries. We've never had an issue there. They did have to pay in cash their rent, because banks, weren't allowing them to have that. It was a federal thing, so even though the state allowed it, but anyway, no. The hardest part was, I'll be honest with you, the hardest part was back in 2010, 11, when we were hitting the crash, and we had shopping centers, and we had mom and pops. And when you have mom and pops, by the way, the martial arts industry is mom and pop. The martial arts industry took a hit during COVID, took a hit probably back in 2011. But when the real estate market crashed back then, it affected everybody. So we'd have people coming in saying, this is all I can pay right now, with the mom and pops. But I will tell you, we never lost a tenant. We worked with every tenant we had. We never missed a payment. We never missed a tax bill. And we got through it. But that was very difficult. And the hardest tenants to work with are mom and pops. Because when you're working with mom and pops, and it's somebody with their dream of owning a business, a lot of times, again, they're not entrepreneurs. They're just passionate about the business they're in. And business is hard. It's just hard. I'm not going to be a consultant that comes on and says, this is the magic formula. It's going to be easy. If anybody on here wanted to get involved with MAIA and learn how to grow your school, I promise you we can grow your school more than you even imagine. But I will tell you, it's very overwhelming and tough in the beginning. But once you get these systems in place, it's systematic and it becomes easy. But I tell people it's going to be overwhelming, and it's tough. I mean, it's martial arts is tough. If you want to be great, it's tough. I mean, you got to train hard, right? Business is the same thing. So mom and pops, but when you're dealing with nationals, that's really great and easy, right?
Yeah,
Especially when
Taco Bell is going to pay rent, right? Or
we've done Starbucks. I mean, it's like, you know, there's not a lot of, there's not a lot of risk there. I mean, and it's very fun. It's very enjoyable. That's enjoyable. But that has allowed me to do what's best for our industry and for my team. Whereas if you would have been doing this podcast with me 10 years ago, I still needed to take care of me and my family. So I would have tried to really figure out how to generate, revenue would probably be my number one, focus in everything that I do. But you could talk to Chris with GrowPro Agency. I know you're good friends with Chris, and you can ask Chris. She's asked me many times, why don't we scale this more, like the consulting, and we should do this, we should do that. And I said, because I don't believe that's what's best for the client. And if my goal was to feed my family from this, then yes, I would want to scale that differently. But that's not my goal. My goal is to give to this industry because, again, I'm a martial artist and I believe in what we do and I believe it's good for the community. So there's a different perspective today than there was maybe 10 years ago.
So now when you're either coaching or maybe helping your team coach, like what's different now when it comes to running a martial arts school than 10 years ago? Like what's changed?
Well, I don't know anything about social media. That's changed. So I need Chris. That's why she's on the team. I think we really need to understand technology and utilize it, because if not, the martial arts industry, I think, is behind in general. We've always been behind a little bit, even 30 years ago to other businesses. We're just, again, I think it's because we're not business owners or business minded. We're martial arts minded and instructors. But I think that has changed. I think that there is a big group that is professionalizing. Martial arts is slowly starting to professionalize. And the other thing is today, I think there's more successful schools than there was 30 years ago. I mean, 30 years ago, it was like an anomaly. It was like, man, you're doing 40,000 a month in your school. Well, we have a lot of clients that are doing over $1 million a year in their schools. And as that continues to happen, I think it'll slowly start to spread. And I think that has changed the way we do business a little bit. However, we're also in an industry where we specialize in self-defense, but we also specialize in self-defense where if you're doing better than me, I'm going to defend myself and say you're a McDojo, or you're watering down the system, or you're nickel and diming people. We're going to defend and make excuses. And that is true sometimes. Sometimes people are about the money and they just find a way to get money, but it's not a universal statement. And I think our industry needs to stop that, stop bashing success, focus on what you do, and understand that you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have the best quality martial artists. You could provide unbelievable careers. You can make great money and take care of your communities and your families. I mean, I have a big cardboard check right here that's for $25,660.50 made out to Orange County Public School Systems. You need money to do that, right? And that's from the martial arts. That's not the real estate side. But my point is I think we need to change our mindset a little bit and understand what is possible. And you do not have to lose the quality of your art to make money in this business. But I also think you need to stay up with technology. I think people like yourself, I mean, I see more podcasts popping out. I think people need to keep an open mind. They should listen to what you have to say. I talked to you a little bit earlier. You have, how many locations do you guys have with Action Karate?
We have 34.
Okay, 34. I want to know what you're doing. right? I'm going to learn from you as much as you're going to learn from me. I think that's another thing that has gotten me to where I'm at is everybody has something that they can teach me, right? And so you're very, very successful. Um, and I'd like to know how you do things too, right? I think, and
Sure.
so the information's there for people, but I think there's so much skepticism in our industry that people shy
Yeah.
away from.
Especially with the internet, so many people chirping, it's hard to know like what's real, what's not real. And that's like there's like yes, there's a ton of information online. Like there's more information you could possibly. I mean, people are also putting whether it's coaches or authors or just industry leaders, they're putting more information online that's more accessible than ever. Right? It used to be you
Correct.
had to read like a book a week or I don't know, a book a month. Now you can never read and still be super smart because there's a million other resources for information.
You're
Right?
absolutely right.
Um, and to be clear, go back before. So my brother started action karate. I joined on much later. So he's really like he definitely mentored me, and I helped him grow it. But it definitely started with him and his partner. And I joined on later. But anyway, I just want to make sure that's clear. I don't want all the credit for that because it's definitely not true. Um, one thing that I always like, if you listen to the show, and you're probably tired of me hearing it on my soapbox, but one of the things I always talk about with school owners is you need to watch game film. Okay. And what I mean by that is too many school owners. If you're a professional martial artist and let's say, you run a martial arts business, any business where you're a professional for the most part, okay, let's say you're a professional basketball player, you're going to watch film of the games to figure out how you can better play. Okay, you're going to see blind spots. You see, oh, you should have passed the ball to the corner, or like you should have drove and dumped it off to the inside center. And as martial artists, we think we teach class, we know what's happening. Oh, I know what's happening. I was there. Yeah, but you don't really know until you watch film. Okay, so I always recommend everyone get cameras with good audio, good video. 10 or 15 years ago, hard to get cameras. Maybe 20 years ago with good audio video. You have to pay someone, cost thousands of dollars. Now it's like you can buy some cameras for $50. You can be up in like 10 minutes and they have good audio and video and you can access it from your phone. And one of the things I like to do with whether it's my clients or whether it's our schools is I like to get on like once a week, some of them once a month, and okay, let's watch film of a class. And we're going to watch a recording of the class with the audio on and we'll dissect the class. What went well? What could we do more of that was really good? And what didn't go well? Oh, like this kid is spinning in circles. No one noticed. You can see for the last 2 minutes, and you can switch cameras to see the parent with their arms crossed like this, and they're upset. And in the moment, you didn't see it. You can't see everything. That's why an athlete watches film, even though they're on the field or on the court, right? So I'm really been pressing people like you need to do game film reviews, even if it's just once a week or once a month. Like watch yourself because you're gonna find things that you did wrong, right? Even if I do like a sales call with a client, I'm gonna watch the film afterwards. Not every call, but a lot of them, because I'm gonna find out things I did wrong. If you're doing an enrollment conference with a student, watch the film. And by the way, it's hard to watch yourself. It's kind of like cringy to watch yourself talk, and it takes a lot of, especially if you have someone else. I like to have someone else on there with me to watch it. That way I get someone else's feedback and not my own. And it can be hard to do to kind of put yourself under the spotlight, but I guarantee your martial arts school will be more successful. And if you're like, hey, I'm curious what this looks like, if you just send me a message on Instagram at blackbeltbrenner1 and say game film or something like that, like, hey, can you send me an example? I'll send you a YouTube link to thousands of game film, probably not thousands, maybe hundreds of game films reviews that I've done. So you can see what that looks like. But I think people need to do more of that. Like if you want to go professional, like you talked about, what's more professional than actually watching what you do and critiquing it? Think about how much better our classes would be, our enrollments would be, but everything would be. I'm sure if you give a big speech, like you'd want to watch it and see like, what could I have done better for the next one? Right. So that's my soapbox.
Why don't they do it?
I think some of them don't. I never even heard of the idea. I think that's the first thing. Like, oh, that's a great idea. Second thing is like, oh, I don't want to set up the cameras. And I'm like, well, I understand why you wouldn't in the past, but cameras are cheap now. And they're very accessible, easy to set up. They're not difficult. But the ones that do, like if they become a client of mine, I require it. I'm like, you need, first of all, even if you never watch film, you need to have cameras to protect your business. So like it's like an insurance policy. It's like a no brainer. It costs a couple $100. And the second thing is like if you're a client, if you sign on to me, I say you got to get cameras and I want to watch film of the class, of of a graduation ceremony, of a school program you do, of whatever, because otherwise I'm just guessing ways to help you. But if I see it, then we can dissect it together. And then also you can keep those recordings and use them for training your staff members that come in the future so they can see how to correct those mistakes. And all of a sudden you have like a library of critiques that you can use to help other people. It doesn't take any extra work, right? So yeah, I really think everyone needs to do it. It's a no-brainer, especially how accessible it is now.
Well, people don't do it because it takes discipline to do it, to sit there.
That's true.
Number two,
Yeah.
People don't like critique. A lot of people don't like the truth.
Yeah.
And number three, good is the enemy of great. And if you're a school owner and you're doing good and you're paying your bills and you have a great life, and you don't want to do more when you're good, because sometimes people don't understand great is better. And I'm comfortable and I'm happy. I'm comfortable. I don't want to do more work. I'm really good. And so that is where a lot of people get stuck too. And it's just because, so here's an example I'll use for everybody listening. If I said to you, if you were working for me and I said to you, hey, if you hit your goal this month, I'm going to buy you a new car. Are you more motivated? Of course you're more motivated. But if I said to you, if you don't hit your goal this month, I'm going to take your car, you're probably going to be even more motivated. You don't want to lose what you have, right? If you miss your goal, your life does not change. If I'm going to give you a car, if you hit your goal, your life doesn't change. Your life really, the impact on how your life will change without that car because you've had it. Well, when somebody gets a taste of great, they will not want to lose it. But if you've never tasted it, sometimes it's not as motivating to work harder to get there because you don't know what you're missing, And when you make it about other people and not yourself, if you really care about taking care of the student or the black belt or the college kid now who's been with you since they were 5, and 3 people, I always just use this as an analogy, 3 of your students that have been loyal to you come walking into your office and say, sir, thank you for everything. We've all talked about it. We decided we don't want to pursue another career. We want to work for you. We want to make our career here, and we want to come on full time with you. Can you hire all 3 of them right now? If the answer is no, that's a shame. So they're going to go open their own schools, or they're going to go into other fields and never have that opportunity to make a career in martial arts. So when you think of it differently as opposed to for yourself, I think that's a bigger driver for people to take your advice, whether that's study game film or keep stats or whatever it is, right? To do the things we didn't sign up for when we had dreams of opening a martial arts school. We didn't dream of, I can't wait to open a school someday so I can film myself and critique the heck out of myself, right? We didn't think about that. We did it because we had a passion for martial arts. But can you flip that switch to a real business owner, entrepreneur? And it just depends on your why behind it. You have to have a big enough why to drive you to do that stuff.
Yeah, and there's plenty of reasons and motivators to make more money that have nothing to do with greed, right? Make more money so you can have nicer facilities for your students, a nicer mat, nicer equipment, be able to hire a bunch of teenagers in your school and give them a job or give someone a career. It doesn't have to be like, I'm just lining my pocket so I can buy a nicer car. Right. And there's plenty of other good motivations. And by the way, like if you do buy a nicer car or something nice, you're also motivating the people around you. Right. You're also like showing other people, hey, this is possible if you stick with me or just do the hard work on your own, you'll be able to be successful too. So there's a lot of upsides to making more money, give obviously money to charity, whatever. You can do anything. The people that I know that a lot of people that I know that are the most successful are also like the most willing to give their energy to people and help people, right? Like, and I'm a firm believer of, Zig Ziglar is if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get whatever you want in life. So I was kind of ingrained in my head in the car, listening to my brother or other people, just listening to, Zig Ziglar and the VHS tapes in the car. Wait, VHS? No, that was for TV.
Unless you had a really fancy car.
We had a Bentley, so it had a VHS tape. No, I'm just kidding. What was it in the car? Cassette tape.
That's right.
Cassette tape in the car.
Tapes. That's correct.
Yeah. And yeah, I still listen to Zig Ziglar sometimes on Spotify. So that's always really good.
Zig was great.
Just a couple quick questions. What do you feel like is the book that made the biggest impact in your career? If you had to recommend one book.
The biggest impact in my career. Well, I'll tell you, when I was just a kid doing the martial arts, not a kid, but a young adult, Zen and the martial arts really made me look at things differently and teach differently. I love that book, Zen and the martial arts. I listened to, so I told my daughters this. So books, are you familiar with Brian Tracy, Chet Holmes,
Yeah.
Jay Abraham?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, Tony Robbins, I was doing the cassette things on all of these guys, right? On sales and marketing your product or your service, and mindset with Tony Robbins. Then you could get into is it Brian Collins from Good to Great? Is that who that is? Who did Good to Great? Joe.
I know the book. I can't tell you the author's name off the top of my head.
Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. I mean, just things that would drive me to be better. So I mixed it with mindset and with, sales, right? And those are the things. Those are the books that made the biggest. I say books, but again, I was more audio. It was more audio tapes back then with all of these guys in my car constantly. And the reason is I had a business mentor who was my accountant back in the day. And he gave me Jay Abraham set. And he goes, I want you to listen to this and then let me know what you learned from it. I was in my 20s. So 2 weeks later, I came back. I said, hey, it was interesting. He goes, tell me what you learned. I said, I'll be honest with you. I didn't listen to him. Right. He handed him back. He said, it's really important. I want you to listen to him and I want to know. I'm like, okay. So I started listening to him in my car and then I got hooked. And for about 3 years, that's all I did was listen to these guys. Again, Chet Holmes, Brian Tracy, Jay Abraham, those guys specifically, just on business and sales and presentation and examples of other companies and industries and how they scaled. And my parents had a tile business and they did tile for a guy who was 60 at the time, in his 60s. His wife was in his 40s and they went out to dinner with him and I went with them and I was in my 20s. And he said, for her 40th birthday, he surprised his wife by depositing $1 million into her account. And then a kid in my 20s who's trying to figure out, how am I going to be financially secure for the rest of my life? I'm like, how did you do that? And he told me about a carpet company that he owned and how he took it national. And then I sat there and I'm thinking, man, I'm just running a little karate school. How can I ever take that national? How can I do that? And I would always go out to dinner with my parents and this guy and pick his brain. So I wouldn't say, it's everything that's made a big impact in my life, not just a single book, or a cassette or an individual. It's the people that I sought out. It's all the clients that I've worked with. So if you want to know how I've gotten to where I am with my martial arts business, just the martial arts schools, it's from all the clients that I've consulted for 20 years doing the one-on-one consulting, which I believe you do one-on-one consulting as well. When you do one-on-one consulting, you don't just get to spew your rhetoric. It's a conversation. So over 20 years with hundreds of people all over the world doing one-on-one, everybody did something that I'd be like, how did you do that? Like, what were you doing? And so what I just became a funnel. And I would take all these different ideas coming at me, systemize it, try it in my schools, and then teach it. And I needed things that would work anywhere, not just if you're in the middle of New York City with 10 million people within 3 miles with a household income of $200,000. There are certain things that just work there that won't work in Kansas, right? So I needed to make sure that these were universal systems that worked everywhere. And that made the biggest impact on me. It almost killed me. I had a lot of clients. And when you do that for 20 years, that was a lot. That took a lot because I was also trying to run my schools at the time. I was doing the real estate with Silverman, doing all those meetings. I remember stepping out of real estate meetings because I had to get on a client call and they would say, so Mr. Metzger, tell me again, explain to me, how do you get new students from doing a pizza party And I just walked out of a real estate meeting to do this, right? And it was very, very, very hard. But thank goodness I did it, because it allowed me to learn this business like I know it and be able to share it now with the industry.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here. If someone wants to reach out to you, how do they find you?
They can contact MAIA, the Martial Arts Industry Association. They can find me on Facebook. They can message me on there, Mike Metzger. They can email me at mmetzger74@gmail.com, mmetzger74@gmail. And I can get, they can call me. I mean, I put my phone number out there. Anyone that wants help. The other thing is everyone thinks they're just going to get sold. If I think I can help you, I'm going to tell you. But there's a lot of people that call me that I say, listen, let me just give you some free advice. Get yourself to X amount of students first, then call me. Let me give you some other advice. Get yourself to X amount of students. So the people can find me.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, I get a lot of those calls too. And sometimes there'll be 20 students in a basement, and I'm like, okay, that's great. I'm not going to be your guy yet. So I'm going to start, for people who are listening, should be out by the end of this month, a group for people who are under 100 students. So I wrote an ebook for you guys on how to get your first 100 students, but B, it'll be a program, probably super cheap. I'm not sure how much it'll be, maybe $100 a month or something super cheap, that you'll be able to get help, but only if you're under 100 students. Like, it's for those people specifically. So if you're listening and you want to grow your martial arts school organically through the Triangle Codex, which is through schools, daycares, and businesses, where we create strategic partnerships to enroll new students, where you can control the inflow, send me an email, matthew@wyourdojo.com, or find me on Instagram at blackbeltbrenner1. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.